Real quick, I'm just curious for you. Like, what would you play in this? Like,
Oh,
I'm
what kind
curious
of
what I would play.
character?
Yeah, like,
Oh,
how would you come? Like, knowing what you know now, I don't know. Like, it's hard. Like, you're gonna be in the snow. I know Ranger is very tempting. I feel like Druid is gonna get. It's gonna be not easy mode.
Druid is definitely thinking ahead a little bit.
Yeah, Druid is thinking ahead.
I think I don't usually play wizards in D&D. Paladin is my favorite class. I love the survivability and the balance between martial and spellcasting. But
Yeah.
I think for this adventure, wizard or warlock would be my pick, because there's this kind of dichotomy of safety and altruism versus power and self-preservation here. Oriole the Frostmaiden has 4 sort of tasks that guard her: a test of cruelty, a test of endurance, a test of perseverance, and well, the 4th one will come to me, but you get the picture. She's very self-interested and kind of wants to encase the world in a glass box so it can be the same forever. And having that sort of eldritch horror, Cronenberg, John Carpenter feel to all of this is very tempting to play someone who wants knowledge and power at all costs, who is constantly thrown into the question of, do I do it for me, or do I do it for them? Do I care about the consequences? And I would love to play a character that has to constantly grapple with that concern.
Yeah, I'd be very curious for this particular adventure how it changes you, and I would probably keep an eye for myself on, like, what would I multi-class if this character changed? Paladin to warlock, warlock to paladin, because maybe you're a warlock and you're like, oh, I'm the creepiest thing in the world, and then you see something, you're like, you know what, I am going to go Oath of Heroism, and like, I'm just going to get religion on this, and I'm just going to hope to get out of this situation. Like, what kind of deals will you make to survive this? I think monk is kind of interesting, because this is very much like a test as a monk, right? You're just in the snow. You're in this inhospitable environment. It certainly makes you, like, agile in a far more dangerous environmental sense. But I'd be tempted at monk, because I feel like the monk has the most. There's a lot of awful, gooey things, right? And you don't want to touch them. And the monk's gotta hit him. You know what I mean? Like, there's gonna be some things you look at and you're like, I'm a monk. What do you want me to do?
I think
the Inquisitive as a rogue.
Inquisitive rogue. A light domain cleric could be very fun, right? Light is a precious resource here, especially when the sun never rises. The light domain is filled with fire spells, very useful against the cold. I think a light domain cleric is a great pick for either a character who really wants to be the protagonist of the adventure, or for a more sinister character who kind of wants to, extort people. Your money for your light.
Your money for your light. Oh yeah. I always love that kind of cleric. The cleric who's selling diamonds at, like, bring me the diamond bell, so
nasty cleric,
an extra diamond, so I can. That's why I like Divine Soul, is you can kind of play that shady or trickery domain. Divine Soul would be interesting if somehow you were tied to the Frostmaiden.
There's a dark secret about that. What?
No,
what?
I don't know. I was just riffing off of the top of my head, so if I caught something, that's my oopsie. So I think there's lots of interesting opportunities that kind of frame the character classes in different ways. I would probably move against type and do something that isn't going. I like the Inquisitive in a weird way for this. You're just so aware, and all the heroes die before you. Right? You can't be the first group to join 10 towns. What else do you quite enjoy? There's a massive thing of whimsy.
There's a part of this book that I just love, that just warms my heart. And it's the fact that you can meet a whale whose name is Angajuk, who lurks underneath the ice and was awakened by a druid long ago. And so this sperm whale has an immense long life, and used to go on sort of marine biology expeditions with her awakener druid. They went all around the ocean searching for secrets. Now the druid is dead and gone, but Ungajuk, the whale, survives and is intelligent and can speak. And the players have the ability to save her from whalers and ride her and explore Icewind Dale from beneath the water, which can lead them to the abode of Oriel the Frostmaiden herself. So this whale is very, very whimsical. It makes me think of the windfish from Legend of Zelda. It makes me think of just that little bit of childlike wonder that can still remain in a world as dark and twisted as this one that's plunged into eternal night.
It's you going into an aquarium. It's like you get to be in a submarine. It's you know, the luck dragon from Neverending Story kind of moment, right? Only underwater. That's, I feel like the balance in this book is so well done between the horrific and the comical and the cute.
I can just imagine a scenario in which the players have just returned from an adventure in the book where they have been killed ruthlessly in an attempt to bring calm to the storm, and they've existed as ghosts for a few hours, trying desperately to come back and escape the ethereal plane and return to life. They've just received a blessing from Lathander, and they're feeling like, oh my God, we've seen a touch of the divine. And then they just wander out and they find this talking whale, and they're like, this is like an oasis in the desert. We have found a moment of peace after truly traumatizing events have occurred to us. So if you've watched Dice Camera Action and felt the way that Chris Perkins runs D&D adventures, I think you will feel that sense more strongly than ever in this one. So if you're a fan of Chris Perkins' adventures, I think that this adventure just oozes with the sort of character and charisma and charm that his DMing style provides. I
think for me, Chris and Jeremy Crawford has this, you know, Chris Perkins and Jeremy Crawford have a hint of this, and this is why I was so obsessed with this man as growing up, is that a hint of Vincent Price, of like just this delight in evil, but just this kind of charm to it as well, and like a wink and a nudge, but the stakes are still very high, and it's such a hard balance, but they're so gray about it. Like, I'll never forget Omen Drawn, you know, Jerry Holkins making a deal with the devil and winning out and giving up, you know, spoilers, a clone for Jim Dark Magic. And it was just like, they're so quick on their feet with those kind of charming little moments.
You could do far worse than try to channel Vincent Price, Peter Cushing, and Christopher Lee, whether you're running or playing a character in this adventure. Think of those old Hammer horror greats, where they have that true gruesomeness, but also just that little bit of B-movie, sometimes a lot of bit of B-movie, and just lean into that hard, and you will have hit the tone for this adventure.
I would, if you like radio dramas, which you may, and if you like podcasts, check out radio dramas. But there is a series you can get on Amazon, I believe. It's called The Price of Fear with Vincent Price. Never is there a better collection of these tiny short stories with him. And sometimes he's the hero in these things, and sometimes he's obviously in on the gag. And it's so well balanced. If you're a dungeon master, I really highly recommend you listen to that series with Vincent Price. It's well acted, it's charming, and you'll learn different ways to play NPCs that you do not see in films today. So we got some trinkets, right?
Yes. I remember when 5th edition launched, and everyone was head over heels for the trinkets table in the player's handbook. This adventure is enormous, right? It's 320 pages. It's the size of the player's handbook itself.
It is a meaty tome.
And I feel like this is the sort of thing that in a smaller adventure that wasn't pushing its page count already, this is something that they just slipped in because I had an extra page. And I'm so glad they did, because these trinkets are just a delightful little bit of flavor that you can add to your character right from the very word go. Todd, do you mind if I just take a look at some of the trinkets that you can find in this book? Just
No,
like
absolutely.
a little handful of them.
I'm very
Yeah.
again, this opportunity to kind of add something to your character early on.
Yeah, I'll just read out a handful of them, and some of these are completely benign, like a jar containing an unidentifiable sweet sticky substance. All right, this has no mechanical value. It's a little bit of flavor,
Right.
but you tell your DM, I've got this jar containing this sweet sticky substance, and I don't know what it is. They could be like, oh, neat. It's, I don't know, Arctic wasp honey or something. It's like, oh, cool. Or they could be like, okay, I'll remember that. And you're like,
trinkets are great hooks. Trinkets are wonderful little hooks to things.
Yeah, or you could have something that's a little more immediately unsettling, like an old wooden-handled ice pick stained with blood that won't wash off. Who got killed by this pick?
I mean,
how did you find it?
I would have a mind flare tadpole in amber. Is this thing from the future? Is it from the past? Like, what is this thing work? What is in the amber? Is it perfectly preserved?
Yeah.
You know, what if this thing's a threat to the rest of the mind flare hive mind, right? Like, it's got its own thing going on.
What is this figurine of a polar bear made of ice that never melts?
Yeah.
Even if you put it right from the
scares
fire.
Me the most.
do people think of this as some sort of strange blessing of Oriole the Frostmaiden? Do people who are dedicated to Oriole think of you as having a bit of her favor, or do people get worried of you when you have this artifact of unmelting ice? Right? These are all sorts of tiny little hooks, perfectly sewn into the fabric of the adventure that you can riff off of and just have fun with.
It's again, it's, you know, I remember when Xanathar's Guide to Everything came out, and they asked Chris Perkins to make a bunch of magical items. And it was like capes of billowing, which I can't not have, and like stud leather armor of smoldering. You know, it's just a lot of very like just silliness. You know, the wand of smiles and scowls, or the kind of the emoticon shield. This is kind of like a little bit of that flavor, but again, it's a hook for your DM to add something, and hooks are great. You know, get your hooks into your players. So we got we got a big one. Are you sure this isn't too big of a spoiler?
Players may want to.
Players look away.
You may want to mute the broadcast for now. But Dungeon Masters, if you're on the fence about running this adventure still, I want to drop a little tidbit from the ending, PostAdventure Epilogue. There are a lot of ways this adventure can end. Your players have the opportunity to, I would say, permanently, irrevocably change the Forgotten Realms in a way that you may not be prepared for, and in a way that the adventure gives you some guidance for, if these are the realms that you have to work with moving forward. I don't want to spoil too much. But there is a secret that has been hinted at throughout almost every adventure in all of 5th edition.
God, since
mysterious objects.
Since Tiamat.
Yeah. Scattered with no explanation throughout the land. And this adventure picks up on them. And if your players aren't careful, they could change the world forever.
I love it. Because then I want to play after that. What are the consequences of your actions?
Playing a campaign after this change. You know, it's not so different that you're playing Gamma World or something. You're still playing Dungeons and Dragons for sure. But
it's definitely a global event. It's and that's what's great about D&D is like I feel like I really feel like the latest D&D books that have been coming out have really explored the freedom of your imagination of what can be done.
Absolutely.
Especially like everyone wants to have agency and agency over the destruction possibly of the entire universe, like it's also kind of nice. I've played with that and it always makes me happy, and it always makes the players feel very important. And I don't know. These are your top 10. I agree wholeheartedly with all of them. It has it's a love note to sci-fi. It really is.
Weird fantasy. Yeah.
But keeping it in such a localized area, because who knows what could be in that ice. And I feel like so much more can be done, even though this book is so big. It is definitely pages per value. You are getting so much, but like, again, I can see this world is going on and on. What else is in the ice?
I mean, we haven't even talked about the fact that there's some 50 plus new monsters in this book, right? There's some very cool ones.
Scary.
Whose encounters I just don't want to spoil for you. There is some, there's some Arctic foxes and stuff in there. Let's not get too ahead of ourselves. But there are some creatures that just...
there's a cold light creature that I adore. It's a reference to The Thing, and what's funny about it is I went to see The Thing, which I probably shouldn't have at that age, assuming I would see this thing, and it was just bright light coming out of someone's hoodie, and that was the creature. This artwork, because they couldn't actually show the thing on the cover of anything because no one would watch the film. So they had this weird piece of art for the thing, and they basically turned that piece of art into an actual creature. And it feels like full circle for me. I'm like, I'm going to be terrified of them, but there are other things that have stomachs that have teeth, and oh my god, there's some absolutely horrifying stuff that's going to be just a blast to fight. Different versions of creatures because of the Arctic. I love as well. But yeah, I love monsters. Who doesn't love monsters? And think about all the monsters you can make for this. What's buried in that ice? What's in those mountains? What's hiding out here? We got some questions from chat. That we'll probably not be able to answer. No.
We'll do our best.
How have you ever discussed kobolds as a playable race? I was actually thinking about this because of this famous piece of artwork. I'm like, it would be pretty fun to play with my wife, like two kobolds standing on each other in a coat. Like not three, like we're trying to be a halfling or a short elf from the back in the day, or two goblins who are trying to pass themselves off, or like a goblin and a halfling, like a goblin and a gnome. What does that look like in a coat?
There's a very cool kobold encounter in one of the 10 Towns quests, and there is an NPC that has a little cadre of kobolds following her around. I think if you wanted to play some Icewind kobolds in this adventure, you'd have a very good time doing it.
Someone did say they felt, Ariel is a bit underwhelming even for a lesser deity. How might you enhance her stats? By roleplay, by how you... I don't necessarily agree. I think, God, there's nothing that isn't scary.
Yeah, so I think this is an interesting question because on the surface, you see Oriel's stats and, she's like a CR 11 creature, and you think there are normal monsters as powerful as that, let alone a god. But I think that's a valid viewpoint. I think if you want your gods to not have stats, not really be killable, that's a great way to approach it. This book definitely goes the distance and justifies why Oriel is so weak. She's casting a reality bending spell every night. She's infusing her divine essence into magic beyond the scope of any mortal, and it leaves her weak and drained. And on top of that, she's got 3 forms, right? Her final form, it may be a CR11 creature, but you've had to fight through a number of already powerful divine aspects in order to get there. You will be facing an uphill battle if you want to defeat Oriel on her own terms, in her own lair. Even at the power she is, it's not going to be an easy fight. But if you wanted to beef her up, give her some 9th level spells. let her drop a meteor swarm made of ice.
There's all kinds of ways to do that, and also like play something that is instinctually smarter. That's a predator. That's an apex predator. Like the alien isn't necessarily the toughest thing if it's charging you head on, and you got like a whole bunch of Marines, but that thing's in the rafters. Good luck.
Yeah. So I think that your question's very valid. I think if you look at it a different way, you may find an interesting perspective on it.
Might be a good article for later. How to play. How to play a god, a certain god.
I think you've got a good idea there, Todd.
I think I'm right. No, how would you encourage your players to tie their backgrounds into the campaign? Will you utilize the secrets mechanic? I think we've already answered that. I'm in love with the secrets mechanic. I think
the secrets mechanic is a great way to do it. There is another way too. This book, it doesn't add any new backgrounds, but it does give a little paragraph of guidance for every background from the player's handbook on how to tie it into 10 Towns in Icewind Dale. So if you pick a player's handbook background, ask your DM to show you the guidance in the book, and that will get you on the right path.
Boy, I mean, I gotta say, I would be interested in doing that live, right? Like for even like my main character Avon, like just like shuffling the cards and just pointing it out. I'm like, that's my thing.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I'm a Jan Dritz fan. I didn't know, or maybe I'm something else. Surprise. So I think that's a fun way to do it too. I think it's a great little element I would add to any story, and it's something I'm going to keep in mind for like further storytelling.
Agreed.
How does the Blade of Disaster interact with Otuluk's resilient sphere? Probably not well.
This thing can pass through even walls of force. It goes through anything. It's a 9th level spell.
Yep.
You're not stopping this sword.
Yep. But I could see you putting some different disastrous like effects, like when you put a bag of hole, a magical hole in the bag of holding or whatever. You can have some fun there, and maybe something comes out instead, right?
Cool.
Instead of going into the astral plane. Yeah. Sorry. I'm always happy when I get that reaction out of Joey. How easy will this be to integrate into your ongoing campaign? I think fairly. We start at level 1?
It's a level 1 campaign. It goes up to level 11, I think. So I would say very easy in some ways, challenging in others. This is a very idiosyncratic campaign, right? We've been talking about the tone of it. The tone is very specific. And so in that way, it might be challenging if your campaign doesn't kind of already have that sort of tone. But in terms of structure, every one of 10 towns is a nice little dollop of content, and all of the various different points of interest in Icewind Dale are little dollops of adventure as well. It's very easy to surgically remove one little bit of chapter 1 or 2 and use it as an encounter, or use it as a session in your ongoing campaign, especially if it's kind of already got a cold, icy tundra theme to it. Yeah,
I think there's good hooks for, also it reminds me of Frankenstein, kind of like, they go up into the north to follow a creature. I could see
yes
being the hook that is heading towards the north to hide.
The part of Frankenstein that people don't usually remember.
Yeah. Like that's the hook of Frankenstein, right at the beginning. He's out there, and then the trying to find the North Pole essentially, and they happen upon Dr. Frankenstein trying to hunt down his monster. And it's very much kind of like the story within a story moment.
Yeah.
And I like the idea that maybe you found a monster, maybe in Waterdeep, that has tried to escape, and it's escaped to the 10 towns. Maybe you're hunting it. So that's maybe a good hook. Are there any owlbears in this book?
Yes.
Absolutely. You will be owlbeared.
There is a brand new owlbear stat block, the snowy owlbear.
Yeah.
Polar bear meets snowy owl. Very, very fearsome.
Great. Totally terrifying. Probably can smell you from 800 miles away.
Yeah.
Very exciting. Well, that's about it. That's all the time we have for Todd Talks. The book is The Rime of the Icewind Dale, The Rime of the Frostmaiden. It is one of my favorite adventures I've ever seen in D&D. I don't know if I want to run it more or play it more. I'm struggling. But it's really fun. You get lots of monsters. You got a lot of new mechanics that you can add to characters. It's just genuinely charming. Tons of fantastic art. Some great writers were assembled to make this product. I am full on in love with it. And also, our baby mind flayers are in it, so you should buy it. So that's available right now on D&D Beyond. D&D Beyond's homepage will send you right to the marketplace where you can purchase the book and start scaring the crap out of your players. So check it out. And thank you so much for watching. Thank you, James Haeck, our lead writer, for walking us through some of the best parts of this book. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye-bye.